Okay, let's get started. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to an imager at StarFront Observatories down in Rockwood, Texas. If you've been following the channel, you know in January of 2025, I had my two telescopes installed at StarFront, and for me, it's been a very great experience. But I wanted to reach out to other imagers that have been in StarFront and also create a situation where they can share their perspective with the audience. And so please welcome Sam Groth. Sam, nice to meet you. Take it away.
All right. So yeah, thank you for having me, Bill, on here. I really appreciate that. And first, I want to start off by giving you a little bit of the history behind my astrophotography here. So as you can see here, this is a comet. Probably some of you will recognize that. Some of you might not know what that is. So it's basically just ice in the sky with a tail, right? And so as a blob of ice gets closer to the sun, it warms up, and then the tail will start flying off into space. And this image is actually special for me because it's my first, if you want to call it, a deep sky image that I captured. So back in 2020, I was looking at Instagram, and I saw different photographers who were taking pictures of the comet, and it was looking really cool. They were doing really neat landscape compositions and all these other things. And I had just bought some camera equipment because during 2020, I ended up having a lot of free time, and I had got to go out and do photography quite a bit. And so I was like, what can I capture at night with the existing equipment that I have? So this may not look special to you, and you might not even recognize it as the comet Neowise, but this is a special photograph for me. So this is probably taken around between 200 and 300 millimeter focal length. I had a telephoto lens and an APS-C camera. So this is just a single exposure. So yeah, this is what's possible. You can see the stars trailing, so everything was not optimal, but it was really one of the first images captured at night.
What was
So yeah, go ahead.
What was your camera of choice? What were you using at the time for the body for the lens?
Yeah, so this was a Sony A6600,
Nice.
and then a Tamron 28 to 200 lens.
Very nice.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the setup for this image, and then I want to show one more image of Neowise. So I also did a wide field image of Neowise here. So this is over a golf course here. It's again like a single exposure. This was taken with a Leica Q2, which I do not recommend for astrophotography, but this image looks pretty good.
It does.
Yeah. So that camera has limitations with like exposure, and you can't turn off the long exposure nose reduction, and like it's limited in the level of ISO that it allows you to have for the shutter speed. So I think it's like 1600 ISO, and you can do 16-second shutter speed. That was the best settings that I could get for this. And then if you go to 3200 ISO, it drops your maximum exposure to like 8 seconds. So don't recommend like a Q2 for Astro. Yeah. So I guess that really got me into it. And obviously I didn't have any star trackers at that point, right? And everything I captured was just single exposures. I didn't understand like exactly what shutter speeds I should be using based on my focal length to prevent the star trailing and things like that. So later on in 2020, I ended up buying the Skywatcher Star Adventure tracker, and I continued to use the same camera setup that I was just mentioning with the A6600 and the 200 millimeter focal length on the Tamron zoom lens. And so then I got more images that looked something like this. So here's a shot of Andromeda that I captured with that setup. And it was, I think there were 62-minute exposures or something like that in this image, I believe. And so obviously, like it was not great, perfect as good as at least my latest Andromeda image. And there were problems with how I captured it. I probably didn't cull enough of the frame, so maybe there could have been more detail. But this was good enough to get me excited about like what was possible. And then I'll show one more. This is my setup. So Let me show the Pleiades image and we'll talk about my setup. So this is a strategy of Pleiades. So again, not the best image of Pleiades you've ever seen or whatever, but it's still pretty cool.
But but
Uh,
but what we're talking about here is you're using a Sony camera and you're using a, what'd you say, 2 to 300 millimeter lens or something?
yeah, that's been effectively 300 millimeters. Yeah.
But I think that's important for people that are maybe watching the channel that are thinking about getting into astrophotography. There's kind of a way that you can get into it where you don't have to go right to a telescope. You can, there are lenses and camera bodies and things that can do. I mean, that Seven Sisters looks really good to me. So, I mean,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, but like that was like if you have good equipment at your house, like if you have a camera and a lens that you're happy with, that's in the 200, 300 millimeter range. A lot of these wider field objects in the sky, you can get really great images with even just the I don't even know how much it is now. I haven't looked recently, but the Skywatcher Star Adventurer, which is like a what $300, $400 like mount. Like you don't even, and then that's obviously a sturdy tripod, but you don't really need like really crazy expensive equipment to get started.
yeah, that's a perspective I've always wanted to bring to the channel because and you're bringing it really. I think you're the first one that's been on the channel that have started in this manner. And I mean, these are to me amazing pictures with what you were working with. So I mean, even your stars look good. I mean, good work. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So these were probably around 2 minute exposures, I'm guessing, both on this and on the Andromeda. So, like, I mean, I guess we could give a little bit of details of what it takes to do that kind of exposure, right? So, if you're using a Skywatcher Star Adventure, everything is completely manual, right, around the polar alignment. So, in order for me to get the polar alignment this accurate to get stars pinpoints like you're seeing here, it took me actually probably a good amount of practice. This was probably not the first time I was using this, and it may have taken me a good 30 minutes, hour, or more even to get a polar alignment accurate enough to be able to expose for 2 minutes with the whole visual polar alignment set up with the Skywatcher Star Adventure. Yeah. So I guess we can move into the image of me actually shooting. So this is kind of what my shooting setup looked like. I lived when I got started in Champaign, Illinois, and I was like, it was portal 878 or something like that.
Okay.
So what I frequently did is I would drive out into the cornfields, which were about maybe 30 minutes to an hour from my house. I would park on the side of the road and set up my equipment. So it was pretty suboptimal, and then I would only go out for 3-4 hours, and then whatever that I got, I would come back to my house and edit it. Yeah, but you can get the idea. You can see me here. There's my setup I was talking about. This may be a different camera at that point. I'm not sure because at some point I upgraded my Sony camera body to a full frame sensor. I believe that the first one I got with the Sony A7R4. So I think that might be the camera here, but I'm still using the same 20 to 200 lens here.
Nice. Yeah, and I can see the Star Adventure there, everything clearly. Yeah, nice. Nice.
For sure. So another thing I got into at the same time was shooting time lapses and star trails images. So like every night I would go out, I would try capturing different data. So each of these images is capturing a different part of the sky here. Probably, I don't know what time, this is Orion rising. So this one here would basically get time lapse of Orion. And then this top one, there's probably some part of the Milky Way overhead. So that was probably in this particular time lapse I was shooting with this camera. So I did a combination of wide field imaging as well as the deep sky imaging. Yeah. So I guess if you don't have any questions, we can move on into the
No.
next. Yeah. So I think those are most of the images I had here. So
Okay.
there were a couple things that I did not have images for, but like I want to talk about. So there's different types of imaging that I've got into. So I didn't jump right into the telescope setup because I looked at the time I was working as a software engineer at probably Yahoo at that point. And so I didn't have a lot of free time between like my work and all my other social life and whatnot. So I was like, I want a setup that's going to be easy to like just plug and play and work. And right. And so when I did my research into all the existing setups on the market back in 2020, they were going to be a hodgepodge of different manufacturers and different equipment. And I was not convinced that it was going to be pretty easy for me to set up. So probably, I think it was either in the most of 2021 and part of 2022, I actually did a lot of moon photography. So I don't have any images of it, but like I captured the moon in like every different phase. And then I did stack shots of the moon and all sorts of things. Like I even have it's in the other room, I can't show you, but in the other room I have a 25-inch diameter shot that I did of the moon, like printed out. And so I did that for a while as well. And then when I was...
Can I ask you a question? So
Yeah, go ahead.
I've never shot the moon. You say stack. So what do? You take a series of exposures on the moon and then you just stack them into one? Is it again to kind of increase the signal and reduce the noise? Is that the purpose, or?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, right?
Okay.
And it goes into planetary imaging as well. So my primary approach was to do a sequence of images. So I used again the Skywatcher Star Adventure when then I would mount my 100 to 400 Sony lens onto the star tracker, and then I put it in moon tracking mode,
Oh.
and then I would shoot a few hundred images, and then I would blend them, right? And so that's how I got the best results. You can also do lucky imaging with your video. So basically, what you do is you set up your camera and lens on your mount or whatever, and you don't even need a mount, I guess, for that. You can just put it on a tripod, and since you're shooting very short, the moon won't move very much. But you take a video of the moon or your planet or the sun or whatever you're trying to image that's like more of a larger object in the sky. And so then you can plug it into some software like Serial or something like that. And then it will take all the frames and so you can say, I want to use the top 80% of the frames. And based on the quality metrics that it uses, it'll remove the worst frames and then pick the best frames and then allow you to blend those together. So that's another approach that I've tried a little bit, but like I haven't gone deeply down that road. Like just taking a few images, aligning them, and then blending them together, like it has got me good enough results for what I'm trying to do.
Oh, thanks for explaining that, because I've always been curious about planetary imaging and taking shots of the moon. I'm getting ready to start trying when April comes around and do some Milky Way stuff and stack maybe 7 or 8. So this is all new to me. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that. So very, very cool.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess let me start sharing my browser window, because I think that was all the images I get here in Photoshop.
Okay.
So if we swatch over there, we should be able to look at some of my my photos that we have here. Let's see. All right. Cool. So if we come here, this is my Instagram, and I want to see if I can get this to load. I want to go back to the beginning here because I have photos of my telescope setup.
Okay.
So I think.
And you will give me links to your Instagram so I can put in a video description so people could follow you.
For sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
We'll do that offline. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah. So as I'm scrolling down here, I was like doing research into the like telescope setups and whatever, and then I saw the announcement like of the ZWO AM5 when that came out, and I was like, and then with their ASI Air and their Raspberry Pi based controllers, and I was like, this sounds like a system that I could just buy the different components. I'll buy a couple cameras from ZWO, I'll have the mount from ZWO, and which one did I buy? I forget which of the ASI Airs I have, but I have one of them. And if I plug everything into this, it'll control the power, it'll control the imaging, it'll control everything. And so I was like, okay, I can get behind that. So I ended up buying the 183 MC camera. So it's a very tiny sensor. And so my reasoning behind that was if I used a really tiny sensor, I could see further into the sky. That was maybe a good reasoning, bad reasoning. It made getting good results a little bit harder actually, because obviously the sensor size affects the quality of the images, and but like I was able to get shots with it here. Let's see. All right, we're getting closer.
I'm seeing some nice shots pass by there, Sam.
Oh yeah, thanks.
You had like a
Yeah.
panorama or something of the Milky Way in one of them that was just kind of gorgeous.
Yeah, I have quite a few. Oh, there we go. This is the image I'm looking for. So I wanted to show you my setup. So this is what I ended up getting, the AM5 here, the 183 MC Pro. This is a William Optics 73 millimeter doublet refractor. And then I have a guide scope and a guide camera here, and then the ASI Air over there. So that's like the basics of my setup.
Nice.
Yeah. So I guess a few things I would about the setup. It worked well. I got some images with it, right? Obviously, I was still learning. There's one thing I guess I would recommend for anyone getting into this is that you do a little bit more research on equipment than I did when I got started. So I'm really happy with the AM5, the ASI Air, and then the cameras, the guide scope. Those all worked well. But the doublet refractor really did not produce great results as far as the stars are concerned. So we can look at a couple images, but you'll see that there's a lot of bloating in the stars, and the optics are just not all that good. Here's one, the Rosette Nebula. Let's see what else. This
Yeah,
is another comet, C2022 E3.
I had the Z61, and it was a doublet, and I've noticed similar things relative to the stars with it and everything. So um, I sold that and bought the Red Cat 51, which I'm really happy with.
For sure. Yeah, so these are several images that I captured with that setup that you're seeing there.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I mean, it's not terrible, but then you see here, all the stars are like super bloated, and obviously my processing skills, I mean, they're probably still not too great, but like back then, I really didn't know what I was doing. I probably could have used some kind of star removal process and captured separate images of the stars so they weren't quite as bloated, right? And then stretched them separately, but I didn't do any of that processing with these images. Basically, I probably edited these completely in PixInsight, if I remember correctly, the process I was following back then. So now my processing involves both PixInsight, and then most of my editing is actually done in Photoshop.
But I think it's just part of the learning curve, right? It would be nice to have the prescriptive everything when we start, but
Hmm.
for me, a lot of the enjoyment was finding these things out, finding out how little I really knew. That I thought I knew something, and along the way, though, those gaps kind of got filled in, and I started to form little islands of knowledge. And for me, it was my progression, and it's where I said I like to learn, and I'm learning a lot. So,
Yeah,
yeah, but these are nice images. I mean,
for sure.
even
Yeah,
back
thank
then,
you. Yeah, I guess we can here's an example of a shot I did with the moon. So this is actually probably a single exposure with my probably at 400 millimeters
Okay.
and cross. Yeah. So I think this is Jupiter. I don't know. You can't really see the moons, but there's probably a few of the moons visible.
Are you
So,
doing anything relative to the eclipse that's coming up? Any plans?
if it's I'm located in western Colorado, right? So
Oh,
we see the full eclipse right over all the long period of time, right? And so if it's clear, I'll probably photograph it. I don't have specific plans. I depending on my schedule, I might just shoot it from my backyard. That's what I've done the previous two eclipses. If we go through my photos here, we'll eventually get to
okay.
we will see eclipse photos somewhere here, I think. But yeah, I've done different types of things. So I kind of like this shot of the moon. So this
That's
is
nice.
composite, right? So the foreground and sky is one image, and then I don't remember if I stacked the moon or what I did with it, but then the moon is blended into into the overexposed moon. So you've got the halo around it. So it looks pretty cool. So there's different techniques that you can use for creating images like that. Yeah. And so I got very deep into the Milky Way photography. So you'll see here as we go through my photos that they progress. This is a pretty cool one. This is the Perseus meteor shower. So this is, I don't even know, 50 or 60 meteors in one image here. And so I tracked the sky, and then I blended some of the exposures together to get the stars and the nebulas in the background. You can see the double star cluster here, the Heart Nebula, the Soul Nebula. I think this was shot at 55 millimeters, if I remember correctly. And this is not shot with an Astro modified camera. So the fact that I was able to get any details of like even the Heart and Soul Nebula here is pretty incredible, actually. And so then you can see all the meteors there. So that's an image like this is a lot of work to create. So I haven't done too many of them. And then the foreground is like a separate image. So there's literally the 50 some images for the meteors, and you've got the background, which is probably another 30 to 40 images like stacked and blended, and then you've got the foreground image. So like the whole thing is just composed together.
Amazing.
Yeah. Then as we keep going here, let's see.
So
Yeah.
when you say Western Colorado, is that the northern part with all the mountains, or the southern part, I think, which gets a little more plateauish, or what?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle, right? So
Okay.
I'm in Montrose, and so right, geographically speaking, we're kind of a desert here, sort of, and so the mountains are to the east of me and to the south. So I've got like, and I've also have the Black Canyon National Park is like probably the most underrated national park there is, if you want my opinion. It's definitely my favorite here. Here's an image of it. Looks like something like this.
Okay.
And so yeah, so I have a lot of night photos there as well. But like it's really cool to visit. That's about 30 minutes east of where I live. And then if you go about an hour east, you end up in the mountains. If you go an hour south, you end up in the mountains.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities here, photographically speaking. Like also there's things like if you're into skiing, things of that nature. Like I was skiing Monday, Tuesday this week. So I was down in Telluride, which is about an hour away, completely unrelated to this. But like it's a very interesting area of the country.
Well, the reason I asked is we've done some fly fishing out in like Meeker, Colorado. It was the higher elevation, 8,000 feet. Beautiful country. Shot images of a lot of moose and fox, and it was just a great experience to be in Colorado. So I was just curious where relative you were in there. So, all right.
For sure. All right, so now we're going to some more to deep sky images. So this is shot with a slightly different setup. So I think everything is the same except I use my Sony A7R4 here to capture the Heart Nebula. And so this was really my first image where I captured a lot of data. So I think it says here 21 hours of data. So I think I shot this over 4 nights, and I got 21 hours of data. So it was my first like experience with like what happens if you get more time and under clear skies. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the weather, but like a lot of times the weather is like pretty prohibitive to shooting astro, right? Like if you don't have a climate where you get a lot of clear nights without the moon, right, it's really hard to actually get enough data to produce a good quality image. And so like I was fortunate, and whenever I shot this, it was probably October, November, I'm not sure exactly which month it was in. Oh, November 15th. Yeah. So this was probably the end of October, beginning of November in 2023. And I was able to get 4 nights where I could get a good amount of data and see what's possible when you have more data to work with.
Really nice detail. Really nice.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, you probably don't want to know what kind of post-processing things I had to do to get that level of detail.
Oh, okay. Well,
Because this is
that'll be
just
another video. You probably
RGB
have
image with no filters, right? I don't know if you've tried capturing the Heart Nebula before, but there's a lot of like hydrogen light coming from there. So if you use a hydrogen filter, you can get a lot of detail. But if you're just shooting luminance or RGB, you're probably not going to get a whole lot.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
there's another shot I did here. Yeah, Orion Nebula and Running Man Nebula, California. This is not a very good image. Yeah, this is the North American Pelican area.
Okay, yeah, there's a pelican down at the bottom, sure.
Yeah,
Got that dark nebula in the middle, yeah, or in
yeah.
between
So
the two.
correct. Yeah, again, like I'm shooting with the A7R4 again instead of the ZWO dedicated Astro camera. I did a planet image, so this is a unique image, like of this guy, and then I was playing with PixInsight, right? Like maybe a lot of people don't know, but you can actually annotate all your images in PixInsight if you use the image solver plugin.
I didn't
So
know
it'll
that.
allow you to tell the details. So I thought it was kind of cool that you can see in the PGC image or like object catalog that there's all of these different like I think these are galaxies, and so I probably talk about it here. But yeah, there's I don't remember how many it is, but there's like literally hundreds of galaxies. And what really shocked me about this particular image is, let's see if I didn't zoom in. But when I was zooming in on my computer, when I was looking at these annotations, I could actually see little blobs of the galaxies in the exact positions here. So they were like not as bright as stars, but you could actually see them. So I thought that was actually really cool.
Hmm. And so you say there's a plugin for
Yeah,
PixInsight. Oh, okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
it works in conjunction with the image solver plugin. I forget exactly if it's the image solver plugin directly or what it is, but it allows you to annotate, and then you have a lot of different options about which catalogs you're using to do the annotations, stuff like that. It works similar to Astrobin's like solver if you're
Okay.
familiar with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. So yeah, if we keep going here. There's more. Here's another. This is the double star cluster here. But probably a lot of your viewers will be familiar with that one, right? It's a very popular visual astronomy target. Yeah. So you can see like this is me imaging now from my backyard. So I at some point, right, was it 2023 or 2024, whatever? I moved to Colorado, and then I was having bortle force skies in my backyard versus having to drive out to a
Yeah.
cornfield, right? So that made a big difference for me. And so as you can see there, I had two setups running in my backyard uh, that were imaging at the same time, and you can see the time lapse. You can see here a shot of the Horsehead, the Flame Nebula. Again, at this point I had bought my Astro modified A7R4. So I'm really happy with my Astro modified camera. It has really allowed me to capture a lot of details, both when I was using it for the deep sky imaging and now with all of my wide field imaging with the panoramas or stacked and track shots. So yeah, if you are looking into getting an Astro modified camera, I think it's worth it. Let's see. We continue on here. You're going to see that there's a big change in my Instagram profile. So I was basically shooting like anything and then posting like daytime photos, nighttime photos, or whatever. And then I believe it was around last May when I started shooting the Milky Way a lot. I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot and post only Astro on this account. So like you'll see a lot more, mostly wide field, and then like here's. So this is the aurora and the Milky Way.
Mm, yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So you'll see I try a lot of different things. So this is actually shot with a fisheye lens. So this it's a Laowa lens. I really actually like the Laowa. I've used several of them. Both of them have been really good. Yeah. So let's see here. So this is I'm not sponsored by any of these people. If I mention a company's name, like it's because I've used it and I've gotten good results with it. Yeah. So basically, I got into this, and then I guess one thing that really changed my Astro last year is I shot a lot of Astro last year, starting with the Milky Way. So I don't even know. Do you know when Bray announced the StarFront Observatories?
I do not. I was a late discoverer of StarFront, so I don't really know the history. So
Yeah. So I guess as we go through this, I can start talking about that, right? So in May, right, I started doing a lot of Milky Way photography. I made a goal to shoot at least 5 Milky Way panoramas in the month of May. I think I ended up shooting more like 10 to 15 of them and something in that range. So I got out a whole bunch. So setting goals for yourself, I think, is a really good process, and you can. It really helped me improve my work over time. And then I had to figure out how to edit these things, which is a whole other story. But yeah, so that I really got into it, and then I don't remember if Bray announced Starfront in May or was a little bit before that. But as soon as he announced it, I knew that I wanted to send a telescope setup down there. So I immediately like contacted him and made a reservation and started to plan what equipment I wanted to send down there.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
What drove your what? How did you know you wanted to go in there? What did you envision by going in there, and how it might impact your astrophotography? I guess is the question.
Yeah, for sure. That's so I was like shooting from my backyard, like I had mentioned, right? And then you saw that we just looked at the images that I took in was it late 2023, and so we had a bunch of clear nights in November, December, right? So I think I shot like whole bunch of different images during that time period. And so I probably shot 40 or 50 hours of data maybe during that time. So I got a taste of what you could do with a lot of data. And then what happened from the middle to end of December through the time when Bray made the announcement, it was like cloudy. I think I imaged that Horsehead Nebula for a few hours was the only imaging I did for like 6 months because it just wasn't clear. And maybe it was clear for part of the night. And it's a lot of work for me to take my setup outside, polar line it or whatever, and then start shooting, right? And like just the appeal of having a setup remotely where I could just log in every night and push a couple buttons and capture data, right? That was a really big appeal to me. So yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll just add. I have almost a similar story. It was when I shot two. I did the Spaghetti Nebula, and I forget what my other one was. Sharpless 240, and I forget what the other one was. But they were the first time I collected uh, more than 20 hours in Bortle 4, and I think I got 25, 26 hours. And when as a traveler, I'd go out on New Moon and maybe image for 4 nights, maybe 5 nights. I'd have to go out to the desert in Southern California. Once I saw what I could get if I had a little bit more time and how I can improve the quality of the images, it just so happened on the second month I went to this event down in Borrego Springs, Nightfall, and I met someone there, and he mentioned Starfront, and I hadn't heard of it. And within, a couple of months, really within a month, I was putting a deposit down at Starfront because I knew that opportunity to image more nights, collect more time on a target, that would be a benefit to me. And but anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. So, uh, seems like you had a similar where you knew you could get more time on targets as one of the benefits, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. It's really a big appeal, right? And I have been following Bray for several years. Right, I have been on several photography tours where he was there, and I had spoken with him several times. And I also attended one of his remote like imaging conference things. I don't even know what to call it, but it was like kind of a tutorial where he taught how his setup works, and he
Wow.
presented some data from one of his Southern Hemisphere rigs. I don't remember which one right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I will admit I didn't know who Bray was. I guess I was really not that plugged in, but I'm glad I know who he is now because I love being in Starfront. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really appreciated my time there. So if we hop through here, okay, we can get to some images.
oh, nice.
So
More
yeah,
content.
so these are actually captured at Starfront, both of these.
Okay.
So this is coming, I guess this is sort of coming full circle, sort of. So we're back at, I started in 2020 with like Comet NEOWISE. Right now we're at like the Comet, the one we can't even pronounce the name of it, whatever, Tucson, however you, Atlas thing, however you pronounce it. But like both of these images were captured there. So there are slightly different edits, I guess, on it. So you can see here how I was like, I guess the limitation with the comet was like how long it was above the horizon, right? And so they were, these are 20, I did 20, I did two different attempts, 20-second exposures. I did 25 luminance exposures, then 10 red, green, and blue exposures each. And that's basically all the time I had on, but while the comet was high enough on the horizon for me to get reasonably good shots.
And are you still on your ASI Air at this point in time? Using
Oh
that?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, this is my remote setup, right?
Okay.
That which is a different telescope. So yeah, we
Got it.
should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so this is captured with filters as well. So like, I don't know if you've ever shot a comet before
No.
with or without filters, but like you have some limitations, right? If you remember the E2022 comet the image I had before, the stars were trailing in that one. And so one problem you run into with capturing a comet is that the stars move at a different rate than the comet itself. So when you do tracking, you have a few options. You can either try to track on the comet versus tracking on the stars, or which is what I did in that image. Or this one, I kept the images like really short so that you didn't notice the trailing of the comet or the stars either way. And then you have to, what you do is you do, for this particular one, right, you have to process each filter individually. So you remove all the stars on the luminous red, green, and blue channels. Then you would have to stack stars independently of the comet. Then you would have to stack the comet separately and align all of those images. And then once you've stacked and aligned all the channels, then you can start blending things together. And so you'll blend the red, green, and blue channels together to get a full color image. Then you'll have to add the luminance and the stars back in as well. So those would all be separate blending process together. So an image like this the processing time is very long and tedious, probably at least 2 to 3 hours of editing on this.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did two of them. So I did this one. So these are a little bit longer. So I shot 60-second exposures. Um, the tail seems a little bit bigger. You got a little bit more detail. You've got the green color here. Like, so some things are better about this one, and some things I like better about the other image. So it's just two different approaches to shooting the comet. So yeah, so my abilities to capture really, and my equipment really jumped from like when I started back in 2020 back to this comet here. So you were mentioning equipment, so that's actually probably an important discussion. Let's see if I can find the picture of the equipment. Then we'll come back and talk about the actual images themselves. Where is it here? This one. All right, so this is a picture of my equipment. So I guess a little bit, we can talk about the image first. So there's a single exposure of my telescope and setup, and then we have a star trails image that I did in the background. And so that's separately. So if you want to know, I guess processing the star trails is like the stars are slightly out of focus. So the focus is closer to the foreground. And then you capture a whole time lapse of images, and then you blend those images together. This star trails is actually really easy to do. If you keep your stars out of focus, they kind of just automatically blend together when you start merging your time lapse.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual equipment here. So I have the Ioptron CEM70 here. That's my mount here. We'll start with that. And so I actually have had no issues with this mount. It works really well. It can hold a lot of weight capacity as well. So my telescope is nowhere near the limit. So I'm not sure which mounts you're using with your setups, but this mount has worked really well for me as far as a remote setup works.
Yeah, I'm using AM5's AM5N for my Edge HD8, and it's doing a good job so far. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, so I still have my AM5 at my house with my other telescope setup, right? So if I want to shoot the eclipse in a couple weeks, right, I could be able to use that setup here. So I guess we could walk through this. We start from the backside here, right? This is the 2600 Pro camera. And I have a QHY filter wheel here with 7 filters in it. There, I have luminance, red, green, blue, sulfur 2, hydrogen, alpha, and oxygen 3 are the filters that I'm using. And if we go look here, I can tell you exactly what filters those are, because I don't remember off the head. They're the Antelia 3 nanometer narrowband filters, and then they're V Pro color filters. Those are the ones that I'm using for the setup.
So you went 2-inch filters. So what's your camera again?
I'm using the 2600
Okay.
Pro, the ZWO1,
So
and then
you could go up to full frame then with those 2-inch filters is where I was going, right? I mean, I think the 6200 if you wanted to go there.
yeah, I should be able to do that. I don't believe my telescope is quite wide enough to
Right.
fill full frame, so I think that would probably limit this particular step. So we'll get into what telescope I'm using in a sec here.
Okay.
So so I wasn't sure what telescope to buy, and I didn't want anything super wide, and I wanted to get some like deeper sky things, right, and at least I'll have some level of detail on them. So I ended up getting the Sharp Star Z4.
Oh.
It's a approximately 550 millimeter telescope, and so I'm shooting effectively. I think it's like 825 millimeters with the crop factor of the 2600 camera, and then the 550 millimeters, which I found to be really useful for a lot of the more common deep sky objects. And then this is a flat panel here. This one is the flip flat, whatever. I think they make like one model of it in different sizes. I saw that they released, was it Deep Sky Dad released a different flat panel in conjunction with StarFront, which might offer some advantages over this one. Like one of those being that it completely seals off the light, and that would be the feature that might make me think about getting a different flat panel, because this one has some level of light leak, especially around the edges, but it's still pretty good. So what I do for my darks and biases, what I'll do is I'll swap to the sulfur filter here, which allows the least amount of light in. Then I close the flat panel, and then I can capture my my dark images. So I'll just wait. So probably, I mean, I need to shoot some dark frames for some exposures right now. So I'll probably, since the roof is almost certainly going to be closed, I'll make sure I'm just following that process. When the roof is closed and they turn off all the lights, then I'll shoot my my darks and my biases. And so, the flat panel, obviously, it also has the advantage that, right, it lights up. So if you want to shoot your flat frames, right, you don't have to do something like sky flats or whatever else you might want to try for that. But yeah, this setup has worked well for me. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, like with the calibration frames, I literally shot calibration frames back in November, I think. And since then, I've been using the same calibration frames for like four months now. And like even with the flat frames, I thought maybe I'd have to shoot those more frequently, but I'm not really seeing any artifacts when I do my stacking. So I haven't really seen a good reason to shoot new ones.
Same here. Since I don't have a rotator, I'm basically working off my original flats back in January, and I'll make some decision down the road to shoot new flats. But yeah, and my darks, I'll go 6 months or more with those. I mean, but everybody has their comfort level, but I'm not seeing any ill effects in my processing the way I'm doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess that covers the main telescope optics here, right? And then on the other side here, I have the guide scope that we saw in my other setup. So I had intended to use an off-axis guider here, but I guess that's one of my pitfalls in trying to set this up. So I did not properly plan the depth between the camera, right, and then the optics and the telescope, right. So a lot of these setups require 55 millimeter back focus distance. And so I was like, I don't want to deal with that. So the ZWO, or no, not the ZWO, the SharpStar Z4 here, right? This is an astrograph, right? So in theory, you don't need to worry about the actual back focus distance.
Okay.
But what I failed to plan for is that I think it was, I forget exactly the details, but there was a limit of within 77 millimeters, right? Once you go beyond 77 millimeters or something distance, then you can't achieve focus. And so unfortunately, when I put everything together with my filter wheel here and the off-axis guider, things were more like probably 80 or 82 millimeters in distance. So I could not achieve focus with the off-axis guider. So I ended up pulling the guide scope off of my other setup and then pushing it on putting it on the side of the other telescope, which you can see over here.
Okay.
Yeah, and so now my off-axis guider, I got that set up with my other setup here. Right? I could have gotten that, put that behind me or something, so that you could see it. But oh well. But yeah, I have the off-axis guider set up and working on that. That's that setup now.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then I guess the last you can't really see here. Obviously, there's the focuser here. That's on the other side of the filter wheel here. And I'm using the Ioptron one.
Okay.
I did a little bit of research, and that one seemed to have good reviews. It had less backlash as far as some of the reviews went compared to the ZWO comparable one. And so I've used that one, and I've had like 0 issues with the focuser. It just works. So good experience there. Again, that's my experience. I'm not sponsored by them. Then we have the Primulus Eagle, right? That's basically the controller here. So
okay.
the Eagle S5, so that controls everything for me. And so one of the things that I really spent a lot of time on is you might not be able to see here is the actual the cabling and power setup here. So even before I went down to StarFront, I was like, I want this to be really refined, and I don't think I'm using any of the original cables, maybe for the mount, but everything else is a cable that I bought that has specific dimensions to fit in the space where it is without getting tangled with anything else and whatnot. Because some of these companies will send you like a 10-foot cable, and you're like, I have like 18 inches or less or whatever, or between my my component and the computer, right? And so that's obviously not optimal. So yeah, all of my cabling is custom, and my Primulus Eagle here will control the power into all of my devices here. So there's let's see if we can zoom out here. So this cable here, this is the main power cable. It goes into my my Primulus, and then the Primulus has a bunch of power out, different variety of power out cables that you can use. And each of those have different amps based on what the needs of your specific equipment is.
I got the Eagle 5S as well, and I thought about getting custom cables, but I was such in a hurry to get into StarFront. I went with what I had, but I tell you what, they did a fantastic job managing those cables for me, and I don't even think about any cable snags. I haven't experienced any, so I got lucky, I think. But if I had it to do over again, I would spend the money and the time to spec out the right cables, just as an extra precaution. But yeah, definitely. But I do want to give a plug to Nate at StarFront, who installed my stuff. They did a real good job, so I got lucky.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I said, I had been following Bray for quite a while, right? And like I knew he had managed other people's scopes, so at Syria Remote Observatory, right? And then he had remote setups in Namibia and Chile, and I think he had another setup somewhere else too. So right, he was already doing it a bunch of times. So I had a pretty good confidence that like he knew what he was doing, and that any of his staff would have been trained by him, so they would probably be very much experts at like any kind of cable management, running telescope setups. Like, I mean, even balancing the scope right on the mount, right? Because you have to make sure you get that right, or else you're gonna run into issues with your gears and other setup issues otherwise. And Like, I mean, there's a lot of things you can go wrong. I mean, I guess I can talk about another detail. So I'm very concerned about my setups, right? And I don't want my telescopes to fall off of the mount, right? And so how I handle that is usually the bars that are in the actual, you can't see me pointing, but I'm pointing at my telescope, and on the bottom of the telescope, right, there's a mounting bar. And usually you can screw a screw into that. And so what I do is I always put a screw on the bottom of the bar so that even if it comes loose, it should just slide back into the mount rather than fall off completely, right?
Oh, nice.
Because that's a thing that I'm concerned about. So this setup, my other setup that I have here locally, they all have screws in there, right? And so I was confident that they were going to be concerned about this. I've seen Bray talk about it. Either I forget it was in the Discord or in one of his YouTube videos that they actually go out, and especially for some of the mounts that might have looser grip or whatever, they will periodically go just make sure things are tightened down so that the scopes don't fall off. So all of these details, I'm actually really confident that they're going to have them covered.
Yeah, and right when we start to wrap up, I have a question for you. But anyway, let's keep going.
Cool. So I guess that's the setup here. Do you have any questions about the specifics, components?
No, I think if viewers do, they can leave a comment in the video description, and we'll see that you have an opportunity to give answers to them and that kind of stuff. So, but no, thanks for sharing that part.
Yeah, for sure. So now that we've gone through the actual setup itself, let's look at some of the images, right? I hope that'll be useful here. So, a lot of these images, these are not in chronological order. I'll put that I think that the first image I shot was this one out at the observatory. There's a few things I like about this, a few things I don't like about it, and we'll talk a little bit about that, I guess, here. So this is almost 97 hours of data on the Andromeda galaxy here. And so I'm I shot luminous, red, green, blue, and then hydrogen alpha. So I actually really like the edit on this image. That's one thing I like about this. I think it worked out really well. And then the hydrogen alpha are kind of just touches of it. It's not like a whole lot of really red detail like you see some images, right, where people have hydrogen all over the place, which I should have been able to capture with my with 40 hours of data, but I actually didn't expose the hydrogen alpha images for long enough, so I was unable to create as much detail as I would have liked with the hydrogen alpha. But this looks like a more natural image and processing, so I'm kind of torn on what I think about this. But this was my first image down there, and I think it turned out pretty well for what it is. Obviously, maybe next year I'll try again and do the real. Maybe I'll try to shoot hydrogen and oxygen data, and then I'll try to get the details of the blue. There's a little blue splash. I don't even know where it is. Let's see. In this area, I think it is over here of the galaxy, and then there's just hydrogen data all around in the image here. So yeah, this was like the first image that I captured there. So I was really busy during that time. I got my telescope set up, and I just set a sequence and then just let it run.
What surprises me, for the length of the exposures, you really have not blown out the core. So maybe that was your processing. I mean, it looks really good. A lot of Andromedas, I see the core kind of blown out, but to me that looks pretty good. Okay, now
Yeah.
we get into the
Yeah.
There's still some detail in there, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think it comes down to your personal preference, right? And I like Andromeda with a bright core. I know I've seen plenty of images where people maybe do a HDR shot, or they just capture shorter exposures just for the core and then try to blend it in. You could also try to stretch it separately and then blend together. I've done that for several images, especially when you're shooting something super bright like Orion Nebula, right? The really bright spot in Orion Nebula. Right. Even if I don't shoot different exposures on it, right, you can shoot one exposure and then do one stretch for the main part of the image and then another stretch. I think I did 3 separate stretches on the data for the last Orion Nebula image that I created. And so then I would just blend and sit in Photoshop and mask each of those in at the different brightness levels in order to make it look more detailed. Yeah. So that was the first one, and I was still learning and doing things, right? So this was probably I had no advanced logic in there. If you go over to my YouTube channel, I did recently a video on how to use N.I.N.A to automate your setup. And with my current N.I.N.A sequence, it controls everything, right? If the roof closes and reopens, my sequence doesn't care. It just restarts. That can happen all night, and like my sequence will continue to run. But like with this, and like there was no handling. It was just an advanced sequence where all it is shooting images. And so thankfully it was clear, and I didn't have any issues with it over the quite a number of nights that I was shooting this.
Are you using a target scheduler, or are you do a different approach?
Yeah, so I know I just use the N.I.N.A like features. No, not the target scheduler. So
Okay.
every night I go and look at it and I say, when is the moon rising or whatever. So I still do all that planning myself rather than with, on my understanding is target scheduler, I haven't used it, but you can go in there and say, I want to shoot these 3 targets and I want this level of moon like light, whatever, what percentage of the moon for this particular filter and things of that nature, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. Yeah, like no, I'm not doing that.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah. So yeah, so we can go look through a few more of these. Like, just let me know. So I have this is one I did of M78.
Nice.
So this is probably one of my favorites so far. This was actually only 20 hours of data. So there's luminance data, red, green, blue, and then the hydrogen alpha. So this is a really bright area right around Barnard's Loop, right in Orion, near the Orion constellation. So the M78, this area has been shot many different times. There's quite a few different like compositions of this. I've seen ones that have won different astronomy awards and stuff like that of the shots of different compositions of this area. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this particular image turned out.
Nice.
Yeah, and then let's look at something different. So the last 2 we looked at are both like the luminance, red, green, blue, and hydrogen alpha. But I've also played with different like color palettes. So we'll look at the Pelican Nebula here. So this is just straight up hydrogen and oxygen data, like literally for the entire image, including the stars. So these are like 6 hours of hydrogen and 6 hours of oxygen data of the Pelican here. And you can see that the effect on the stars here is actually kind of interesting. So you get like these blue-green stars when you do the HOO color palette. I actually think it works really well for this image. For a lot of the other images I've done in narrowband, I'll shoot separate like RGB images just for the stars.
Yeah. Nice.
And then one other, we'll look at the SHO color palette, right, which is more commonly referred to as the Hubble color palette, right? So you can see for this particular image, I have the sulfur, hydrogen, oxygen are the main data here, and then the red, green, and blue is for the stars. So I really need to go re-edit this image because I really hate the stars in this image, especially this big bright star here. It does not look good. But like I like the detail of the jellyfish nebula here in that region of the sky. I think it's a really cool composition.
And that's 30 hours plus. It looks like a data there. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
33 hours. So you got like 4.5 hours on the stars, and then the rest of it on the whole nebula itself. Yeah.
That to me is StarFront. I mean, not taking anything away from you, but I mean, I remember one night I came in, I didn't think the roofs were going to open, and
Mm-hmm.
they opened, and in 5 minutes I'm imaging on 2 scopes.
Yeah.
I mean, it just it's a different experience, and I'm leaning towards longer and longer exposures or integration times now. That's a beautiful image.
Yeah, for sure. So like I'm not familiar with your setups. Are you shooting with like filters, or are you shooting
Yeah.
color?
No, I've got the Edge HD 8, and I've got the 533 mm with the filters on it, and I've got an OAG with a 174 scope camera on there for the OAG, and no rotators or anything. ZWO EAF, that seems to be working out okay. But I tell you what, my stars never look so good. Uh, Whatever they did with the polar alignment, collimation, and everything, my stars are phenomenal. And I've never seen my AM5N guide as well. So, you know, one of my questions is, whenever you hang out like on a cloudy nights and everybody says start with a small refractor, well, there's a lot of logic to that. But I'm almost beginning to think you could be a newbie, you could buy equipment, you could send it down to StarFront, they'll dial it all in for you, and you can just, kind of start imaging. Now, there's things you need to know about the imaging software and those type of things, but those guys are so good. Uh, but anyway, that's just, that was the question I was going to ask you, if you think that's a viable scenario. I mean,
Oh,
uh, you know.
yeah. So yeah, I definitely think it's viable for sure, right? And like following the Discord, I can tell some of the people in there, right, are just getting started, right? I don't know, looking at the imaging results as well as the questions that are being asked, right? It's like someone who had been doing this for a year or two would have like already like solved those type of problems and stuff, and probably be producing better results if they put effort into the editing process. Yeah.
And
But yeah, I agree. I totally think that if you're really just wanting to get into it and you're not a very technical person, right? Maybe your background is in software. You don't really have any experience with physical hardware or anything like that. So the setting up the scope side of things might not be your cup of tea, so to speak. Then I think you could send it down there and totally get started and be producing good results very quickly.
Yeah, and where this idea got a little bit more formulated was me hanging out in the Discord and seeing the level of help, and it looked very basic stuff. So these must be people on the front end of the journey that are getting up and running with a lot of help from the community. I think that that
Yeah.
community there is a
Mhm.
strong asset, and part of the value being in the a customer Starfront. If you ask me, there's just a wealth of knowledge there. So okay, so yeah, I mean, I still think probably a small refractor is a good place to start, but who knows? Thanks for
Yeah.
that answer. All right, well, maybe one or two more, and or we want to touch on your YouTube channel, and we want to touch on your Groth galleries as well. I think so, but
Correct.
keep going.
All right, so we'll look at this. So I did the shots of Triangle and Galaxy. So about the time my setup was what got put in, right? They started to
Oh wow,
like
yeah.
do the collab project. So unfortunately, my setup was not dialed properly in time for me to participate in that project. But I did actually capture 73 hours of that on Triangulum myself, and then I was able to produce an image here. And so there's different edits on this. This took me a lot of hours to produce this result here. I did a lot of different things to make it look clean, like you're seeing here. It's not as like unique as like some of the results that you will see from like the top people like Bray's edit of the collab project, or there was one other person who did a very similar project around that time. I forget who it was. If you go to Astrobin and look at the top people, you can find it. But I'm really happy with this result. You can see the details here in the hydrogen data, right, in the
Yeah.
galaxy here. And so so this hydrogen one was pretty hard to do. So I don't know if most of you want to be familiar with the continuum removal process. So like with this, they edited this. I started with the continuum removal process for the hydrogen to bring out the hydrogen details in the galaxy here. But then I was struggling with the details being blotchy. So what I did is I took a slight edit on the non-continuum removed image and like blended that in to make the hydrogen alpha blending with the RGB images look more look pleasing, and not like having blotchy, like, oh, here's a bright red spot, here's a bright red spot. And so it looks really, I think this result looks really clean. You can see a little bit a touch of red in the middle of the galaxy here, but I actually don't mind that because of the way I blended it. But like I spent a lot of time on this, and I think it looks good. And then you can see if I come off here, you can see the oxygen version of this. So this will be the luminous RGB with the oxygen. I think I have the starless version, just the stars and LRGB here as well. So one thing that I really like don't like about a lot of images that people do of this the Triangulum Galaxy. I have no offense to how anyone edits anything, but like my personal thing, one of my favorite features of this galaxy is the fact that you can see these little like stars or dots in the galaxy itself. And so what a lot of people do is when you do a star removal of this galaxy, it removes you lose those stars.
Yeah.
Like they don't show up in your star removed or in your star image. So what I ended up doing is I did multiple different goodness, what is it doing? Multiple different images here, right? Where I did the stars in the background here are one image, then the stars in the main galaxy in here are a different image. And so then I used masking in Photoshop so that I could like make these stars less prominent out here while maintaining the detail of these stars in here, which I think is a really cool effect that I was able to accomplish with this image. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, and it brings a very good point. Why, I mean, they are there. So really, you want to show them because there's a lot of beauty in those clusters and everything, and those small, what look to be small stars and everything. Just beautiful work, beautiful work. Yeah,
For sure.
I'm gonna have to
So yeah,
watch your YouTube channel.
oh for sure, yeah, definitely. If you want to find my YouTube channel, right, I'll send you the link, but it's just youtube.com/Groth Galleries. You can find it here. Oh, let's not do that. But you can see all different things. So you can find out about my some of my different hobbies on here. I should probably upload some of my skiing videos on here so people can connect with me on that too. But I do off-roading or / overlanding, whatever you want to say, out in the mountains in Colorado here. So during the summer, I was able to get out and shoot the sky out there in a wide field view. Right, I'm not carrying my telescopes out with me, but anymore. But like I spent a night at like 13,000 feet and captured images there.
Wow.
And I also did some off-roading. This is a longer form video that I did with one of my clients where I did a lot of drone videography for them, as well as some other cameras that he had that I was using. You can find a lot of details on Deep Sky here. There's different, like here's my Deep Sky Astro. I think I have 5 or 6 videos here talking about different things. I talk about N.I.N.A. I talk about my setups. I have a video of just my images. Some things that you should avoid when you're setting up your remote telescope. I did a video on that. I have a variety of different things. So I've done several courses on how to use Lightroom. And then, yeah, you can find all that content on my channel here.
And then you want to highlight your gallery, or did you want to?
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to talk just for a second, very briefly. I'm not sure how much of your audience is interested in the wider field astro, but I wanted to mention, show a couple of my photos on that. So right now, that's what my business is focused on. You can find a lot of this content on YouTube. I do YouTube lives every week, and in fact, in about 40 minutes, I'll be live again, talking about some wide field astro topic. To be honest with you, I don't think I planned that yet, but I still have to come up with that. I'll come up with something. But this is one of my favorite shots from last year. This is a Milky Way panorama shot at above 13,000 feet up in the mountains in Salem Mountains in Colorado. And so this is an example of a shot that I've done, one of my favorites. You can see air glow here. You can see some of the nebulas here. So I'm shooting with my Astro modified camera. So this is not tracked at all.
That was going to be my question. Okay.
No, so believe it or not, I shot my first tracked panorama last week. I have not checked to see if it merged. So it's a Milky Way arch panorama, except for the winter Milky Way with Orion in it. So I'm optimistic. Hopefully later this week or early next week, I'll get around to editing that, and then I'm planning a trip at the end of the month to Utah and Arizona, and hopefully I'll be able to shoot some more tracked panoramas there, so I can get my process down for how I do those type of images. But yeah, no, this is just basically, I think probably 13 second exposures for the sky. And there's probably eight exposures, I believe, for the whole panorama in the sky, 8 panels shot at 24 millimeters. And then the foreground is probably very similar. Maybe, I don't remember if, because you can shoot, it might be longer exposures or a higher ISO to allow more lighting because the foreground is obviously darker. And then one other wide shot. So this is another one of my favorite shots from last year. So this is Coastal Hoodoo over near Kanab, Utah, if you're familiar with it. And I think my favorite part of this picture is it kind of combines both the wide field Astro and the deep sky Astro, because you can see like literally a whole bunch of really common deep sky targets in this image, right? So you start out with the Heart and the Soul Nebula here, right? And you've got the double star cluster there. You've got the California Nebula here. You've got the Pleiades over here. And then I believe if you zoom in here, actually, I don't know what happened there. You zoom in up here, there's several other nebulas, which off the top of my head, I don't remember which ones they are, but you can see all these right in this wide field image, which I think is really cool.
Very nice.
So yeah, so if you want to learn how to capture this type of image, right now, like my focus of my business is to teach that. And I guess I'll mention one other thing. So I'm using this platform called School. And so if you come over to School slash Groth Galleries free about, you can learn about what I'm trying to teach here, which is basically I have a weekly a masterclass or mastermind that I have every Wednesday, which I go live on YouTube and talk about something. And then if you join my community, I'm live on the Google Meet to answer any questions that you might have about astrophotography. So if right now, like if you want to come and ask me about my wide field Astro, you can do that, about deep sky, editing, your equipment setup, whatever questions you might have. I'm there every week to answer the questions.
Wow. Busy, producing beautiful images. Wow. All right. Is that about where we're going to leave this? Anything else you want to present?
No, I think that I'm good, actually. I really appreciate this Bill. Right? Like, it's really cool to hear what other people have gone through and what their journey is to get into Astro. And it's really cool that you have two setups. And it's actually pretty cool that you're using AM5s for the larger telescopes as well, which is actually kind of interesting. So, like, if I'm looking into another telescope, I could definitely consider running my AM5 on that.
Yeah, I've got, of course, the counterweight and an ioptron. I don't know, I forget, 11-pound weight or something on it. But yeah, so far it's been working out pretty good. But you have, I'm trying to think. Okay, what is this conversation going to look like? And I mean, I'm basically sitting here in awe. And so I want to thank you. You have really shared with me and hopefully the viewers that there's so much more that could be done. I mean, because Astro, many of us just think of it as deep sky, but it's just amazing. The whole Milky Way and with the heart and the soul. And I mean, that's just an awesome shot. So, all right. Well, you're gonna, if you could just shoot me these links in an email, I'll put them in the video description. And other than that, I think we can kind of close this down. I want to thank you so much. This was just, entertaining. I'm awestruck. It's just amazing work that you're doing. And thank you for agreeing to come on and do a video. And I really appreciate it. So, to my viewers, make sure you check out Sam's stuff. Descriptions, the links will be in the video description. And Other than that, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Other than that, clear skies wherever you may be. Thank you, Sam, and till next time.